Welcome to Dad Pod, a community for dads and men.
You gotta love them boys. I'm hanging with my boys. Just me and my boys.
Welcome everybody to today's episode of Dad Pod. I'm excited to have my very good friend Stevie Wilson on for today's episode. He's going to be joining us. Stevie, how you doing today?
Doing well, Clay. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Yeah, Saturday morning, got to spend a little bit of time with the kids. And then excited to get back to it and back to dad life. So yeah, on this episode, today we're going to be asking Stevie just about his experiences as a father of 5 young kids, and in particular about vacationing as a young father and of such a young family. And so, yeah, Stevie, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll start us off with the first question.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Stevie Wilson. I'm 33 years old. I was born at a very young age in Oregon, and we moved to Utah for my dad's job when I was 4 or 5 years old. Pretty much I've lived here ever since then. Spent a couple of years in Brazil serving a mission, and then came back here, went to BYU, got an undergrad in economics, and immediately started working in the finance world. I've been working as a financial planner for 11 years actually this month at the same company. And yeah, I think that's me. I'm married, have a wife, and 5 kids. My oldest is just turned 7, and then my youngest is 6 or 7 months old.
Yeah, I love it. And I can say from, having observed his experience as a single man, all the way to, where he is now. I can say he's an amazing friend. And I know that, his wife would say he's an even better husband and an even better father. And I'm excited to have him on, and that he was willing to come on and speak with us today, because he really is a good father and a good friend and a good dad. So, all right, Stevie, kind of starting off. Oh, I guess I should say I've known Stevie since our early days of college, so that's how I know Stevie really well. I've known him for longer than he's been at Northwestern, which is kind of crazy to say that time's gone by that quickly. But anyway, so Stevie, you grew, growing up, what did you think about fatherhood and marriage, and what were your thoughts on on all of that when you were young and growing up?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. As I think about it now, I didn't think much of it as a kid. You look at it with those just naive, unexperienced eyes, and
Yeah.
I saw my dad as he was my friend, and he was there, and I knew that he was the one that was making money and paying for stuff.
Mhm.
I appreciated it when he came to my baseball games and whatnot. But I guess I didn't put as much emphasis on it as I probably should have as a kid. And I think that the biggest oversight that I had was that I thought everybody around me had the same parents or the same home that I did. And had I known that, and I guess taking a step back, my parents are absolute top notch, like really, really great parents. And I had that all through growing up. What I didn't realize is that not everybody did. And I think had I realized that not everybody, had like a mom that drove them to school that morning and every morning, or, a dad that helped do that I think I would have been a lot nicer to the kids. I didn't realize that not everybody had a good night's sleep last night. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
as a
or ate the
kid,
same.
again, didn't realize that. Looking back on it now, it's like, geez, my father played a huge role in where I am today, all the confidence that I have, the success that I have, all that type of stuff, and I just didn't even realize it that it was my dad that was providing all of that. Now, going back to your question, now looking back at it, it's like, geez, I know that the huge role, just absolute vital role that fathers play in the upbringing of their kids and their future success. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to this, and they'll point at examples of stellar individuals that came from broken families. Their father left when they were 3, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the exception. Those people are incredible, and I don't know how they do it. But you look at the statistics. That's not normal. Generally, when people grow up in a household without a father, no matter what the situation, it's actually a bleak outcome. It doesn't go well. And so now, as a father, I feel that weight, to provide for my kids, to protect my family, and it's crippling at times. And obviously you make mistakes all the time, but you gotta keep trying. And it's funny, that vision switch from when I was a kid. I'm just like, yeah, my dad's there, and like, I guess he goes to work like everybody else's dads, and they're kind of all the same, to like, whoa, no, there's a huge difference between quality of fathers, first of all, and there's a big importance on the role that a father plays in the household.
Yeah, totally. I love that. In fact, it reminds me of, do you remember that video, Earthly Father, Heavenly Father?
Yeah,
There's
I
like
do.
this, that I think about that all the time, especially when you talk about quality of dads, right? They don't think about, because it's just his internal kind of monologue about, um, he says, I go to work and it's all for them. I go to work, they get up, they eat without really thinking about where it comes from, right? And it's all for them. And what's so cool is nature, or God has provided a way, just through our feelings. It's natural for us to want to do those things. So it's so cool that we have that kind of tool, and no one else is in a position quite like, I mean, other than a mother is, but it's almost nature's role to kind of give us that mantle. And it's nice that we have those feelings that come along with wanting to do those things, because if not, we would be not wanting to do those things.
Well, yeah, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, to be a father is not, it's not for the weak. And
Yeah.
I can see why there's a lot of fathers, or just people who become the dad, through that, they can't handle it, and they run away, not because they didn't love their kids, but because it was too hard. I I often think of my own thoughts about myself before I was a dad. And I was
Yeah,
like, dude, I am killing it. Like, this is so
totally.
easy. And, I was doing well. I had a job, I dated a bunch, and, it was just like, I was just killing life. And then I became a father, and really quickly, my weaknesses were exposed. uh, by
Yeah.
my kids. And it's just funny, like, I was doing I was trying to do all the same things that I was doing before I was a father. You wake up and you exercise, and you go to work, and you make money and whatever. But then on top of that, you're now a father. So you're at home, and you're doing homework, and you're drawing pictures, and you're playing baseball, and you're taking kids to gymnastics, and you're also feeding them, and you're taking care of, you're changing diapers. And it's just like, the list is forever long. And at some point, you break. I mean, your weaknesses are exposed. Mine is patience. Like, my gosh. And so here I am, and I find myself losing it. I find myself, raising my
Yeah.
voice and whatnot with a 3-year-old. Like, give me a break. I'm a grown man. You don't need to raise your voice with a 3-year-old. And so, like, really quickly, my weaknesses were exposed, on all levels, where it's like, geez, can I even consider myself a good person? So I go from,
Totally.
so I go from like, wow, I'm amazing and I'm killing it in life, before becoming a father, to like, can I even like walk through the front doors of my church building anymore after like
Yeah.
what the
Am I an imposter?
so it's interesting. I mean, it's important, but it's hard.
Yeah, for sure. And you realize like the emotional control that you thought you had kind of just goes to a whole new level, whether you're, have to discipline your kids. And then even when you gain the emotional control, it's like you need the knowledge of, well, okay, I didn't overreact, but what do I do now? Whether you're disciplining or whatever it is, right? And there's
It's
no
another
manual
league.
for that.
It's another league. I would imagine that a lot of like high school, all-star basketball players, when they make it to college, and start playing for some whatever D1,
Yeah.
college school, that they feel a lot the same, where it's like, wait a minute, I used to be good at this game.
Yeah. I used to be good at life. I used to be able to control my schedule. I used to have patience. I used to have energy.
I I used to dunk in games, and now I'm sitting on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, isn't that the truth? So kind of looking at that then, um, tell me, I want to hear just a little bit about when you first became a dad, right? So, um, well, actually, let's take a step back. What made you kind of seriously consider? Because I know you talked about how you were owning life, right? You were dating a lot, you were making money, right? You were doing all these cool things, and I remember kind of seeing those things. What made you? What kind of clicked when you were like, okay, now's the time where I should probably more seriously consider marriage and kind of getting into that family mindset?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I
Was
honestly,
it just
like,
seeing Emily?
yeah. Honestly, it wasn't a click. It wasn't a change. That there was, as far as I can remember, there was never a point in my life where I considered not getting married and not becoming a father.
Yeah,
Um,
for
it,
for
it, it
sure.
was I knew that it was part of my plan. Um,
Right.
I I'm one of 6 kids in my family, and I'm by far the youngest. My brother is closest to me, but he's almost 5 years older than I am, and he is absolute top notch individual, smart, driven, just everything. And so it was what was easy for me, again, just going back to what you're surrounded by. Um, I always had him as this role model. And so basically, I just would watch him do life, and I just knew, okay, whatever he's doing, like, great, here in 4 or 5 years, like, that's what I'm going to be doing too. And so he, went to college, graduated from college, went on a mission, came back, got married, had kids. And so I was like, all right, well, that's what I'm doing too. That must be good, because
Right.
I know how smart he is. He's figured out, so that's what I'm doing too. And so I did that. Went to college, uh, went on a mission, came back, and tried to get married. At least it took me a lot longer than it took him, but a few years after getting back from my mission. So I got married on my 25th birthday, and here in Utah, and especially in the LDS culture, that's ancient. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
Ancient age to get married, and so most of my friends had been married already, but yeah. So I guess to answer your question without rambling too much, it wasn't like this aha moment, or like, whoa, that chick is really hot, like I have to nail that down.
Right.
It was way more just like, yeah, this was always part of the plan. And I think you were there when I
Yeah,
met Emily.
for sure. Yeah,
um
we were on the cruise.
Yeah, I had dated a lot, and kind of figured out what it was that was most important to me. Everyone can make a list of 10,000 things that they want in a future spouse.
Yeah.
And I had a list, but really I had prioritized that list. And she checked all of those first boxes that were way up at the top of the list. And really quickly I knew, like, okay, if she has these things, then I don't really need much more time to get to know her. Whatever the other things are, I can work through it because we've got this connection on that high priority level already.
Yeah, and what's really cool about your experience in dating, Steven, something I'll always remember, and hopefully I'll pass on some of that to my kids at least, is when they start, dating is, you talked about increasing your fail rate, right? Like you already knew because you dated so many girls that you could know, okay, I am getting a feel for what I want in a future spouse. And because you dated so much and because you um weren't afraid, I guess, of that rejection, or I guess just pushed past it anyway. No one, everyone's afraid of rejection because that's just part of human nature, but just the willingness to push past and kind of see that greater vision, I think is really cool, and something I still kind of think about to this day when you said that, right? So
What I don't appreciate, Clay, is you talked about my dating life and talking about and correlating that with increasing your failure rate.
those are your words. And if I must say, you said those words, but if anyone was succeeding, I think out of all of our group of friends, it was you and Andrew that were always you know doing really well for yourselves on that front. So I
Yeah,
don't feel
right.
bad in saying that. And anyone who knows you, which a lot of people do, they will know that that's not a true statement. So anyway,
No, but yeah, so I met her. She checked the most important boxes on my list, and we got married very quickly. Our first date was actually May 6th, and we were engaged on that same month. Um,
yeah,
and so
that's awesome.
that was really really fast. And then we did wait just a little bit before having kids, but it wasn't that long, and then we just didn't stop until now.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that's evident with having 5 kids. I'm still amazed because I have 3 kids at 3 and under, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know how you do. You guys are on a whole new level, and I see and that's what's so cool. And I think you're such a good wealth of knowledge, and I'd love to even have you again to cover a different topic because I think there's some really cool things that you do. And again, just speaks a lot to who you are as a person and the type of reputation and the type of legacy you're leading behind, right? One of the things we say, I normally have my dad's with me, but he's with his brother right now. So there it was one of the things that we've said is, our kind of our tagline with this is live your legacy. And I think you're such a good example of that, and why I'm so excited to have you on is, you do a good job of living every day the type of person that you want to become down the road. And it's cool that you see that. And so anyway, I digress, but that's the cool part. So I want to hear just a quick little bit about when you first became a dad, right? So obviously you married Emily. What were your feelings when you first became a dad?
Yeah, this is not a fun story to tell, and there's a lot of emotions that are attached to it. So my apologies ahead of time.
That's okay. I've already lost it multiple times on previous podcasts, so it's hard for me when I talk about family too. So I get it.
So the career that I chose to go into, it's very production based, and at the beginning, making money is extremely difficult to do, and so but that's what I chose to do, and that's what I was doing. And I had married her. She got a job working at a dental office, and when we decided to have a kid, she, getting closer to the due date, she our decision together was that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so she ended up quitting her job. I bought a house. uh, I worked at this production based job where it's like I could easily make negative money any given month. And,
Yeah.
now we've got this house with a mortgage, and we're about to have a baby. And so it was like all those things of like, we went from two incomes to one. We now have a mortgage. We're about to have a baby. It was, it was crippling, the amount of
Hmm.
anxiety that I had. So, I mean, I honestly remember throwing up multiple times in the toilet because it was like, oh, how is this going to happen? And so that was day one, right, of becoming a dad. It was like it was too difficult.
Yeah.
Um, and so I did end up reaching out a lot to just family and friends and saying a lot of prayer, to
Yep.
get me through those times. I mean, finances were extremely tight. I remember like driving home from a surplus store, which is where we got our groceries and our clothes and whatnot. I had purchased it. My belt was just frayed, and I worked in the financial industries, and you can't wear a frayed belt when you're
Yeah.
telling people what to do with their money. And so I'd found a belt at this surplus store. It was $12, and I remember driving home thinking, I don't need this belt because my other belt still holds in my pants.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was hard, but I grew, right, and like we're fine now, obviously, but I'm glad that we became parents as early as we did, and that we went through that. We're doing great now. We've got 5 kids. We're not hurting financially, and we learned along the way, and it's fun, and it's almost laughable to look back at our situation now, but also to look at others who are going through those same situations as an early parent, figuring it out, and looking at, talking about how hard it is. And it's just so funny because you look at somebody that has 1 or 2 kids when you've got more than that, and it's like, oh man.
2.5 times more, you know?
Yeah, and but the thing is like you with the capabilities and the skill set that you had at the time of having 1 kid, it was very difficult. Here I am crying thinking about how hard it was. But it's funny because you take your current situation of a bunch of kids and the complexities and the additional stresses that you have at your job or whatever, and you look back and you reminisce on how easy it probably was to have 1 kid or to enter
Yeah.
fatherhood. And it's like, oh man, like it's almost laughable looking at other couples that are like, oh man, we sorry, we can't go out to dinner because we've got a baby. It's like, no, like babies sleep for like
Yeah.
98% of the time. Like it's like having a tote bag. Like you can't go to dinner because you have a tote bag. Like that's almost the viewpoint that I have at this point, because of the growth and the abilities and the skill set that we have now that we developed over the last few years.
Yeah, and you guys are truly, I mean, something to learn from, which is why I'd love to have you on future ones because you do such a good job of, there's one point I asked you, I'm like, how are you and Emily, how are you guys both getting up and working out and do it? Like, some of us just don't know. And so, having some advice on that front is just so key. We can get things done, if you plan and you put your minds, you really want to do it, you'll make it happen, right? So
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, man. Is you have to decide to make it happen, and then
yeah,
figure it out just the same way that you figured out like a difficult math problem in high school. Like you just keep working on it, and I think a lot of people take opinions, and they plug them into equations as facts or like immovable variables, and
totally.
it's just not that way. It's like, look, you don't tell me you can't go on a date with your spouse because you have a baby. Like I could give you 100 ways of figuring it out because I have. And so
Right.
like it's important, like love your spouse, spend time with them, go on the date. if you have a baby, bring it, find a babysitter, ask your neighbor. Like, I could go on, like, you can figure it out. Clay, you
Yeah.
asked me to do a podcast, and I've got 5 kids, and it was a Saturday morning, and I'm
On a
like,
Saturday
my
morning.
my first thought was, dude, like, I can't. But like, it was such an easy thing to overcome. I said, no, look, I know, I'll lock my bathroom door and I'll sit in my bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
it works. Like, we're figuring out we can do this thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. So kind of gearing into the kind of the realm of vacationing and planning, so kind of on that realm of so when so you guys went on this vacation to Disneyland.
Mm.
And I realize this may not be a super happy story to tell, but you know, I do kind of want the rawness of, you know, what planning it was like and kind of what went into that. So tell us about that whole experience to Disneyland, you know, as much as you want to tell.
Yeah, sure. And I hesitate to tell the story because I don't want it to come across as ungrateful or like not realizing the blessing that it is to be able to take your family to Disneyland. I realize that a lot of people look forward to that, you know, for their whole lives, and most of them don't end up ever making it to this
Right.
magical land. Um, I'm not one of those people that look forward to it. My wife loves Disneyland and Disney World and all that's involved there. And so we planned this trip. And to preface it, we go on a lot of trips as a family. Most of them are road trips at this point. Getting on planes is very difficult. But so we
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we pack everybody up into a car. Yeah, 7 plane tickets. Like, I don't, anyways,
The logistics of putting them in seats is ridiculous.
yeah, I don't even think that we're allowed on a plane right now because you're not allowed to have more than one baby on a lap, right? And so there's only two of
Yeah.
us, and we got more than 3 babies,
Right.
um, so we have to go on a car at least at this point in our life.
For sure.
Um, anyways, planned the Disney trip. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I was like, no, look, like, if my wife put a whole bunch of time into it. You asked about planning it. I want to be very clear. Like, I didn't help do that. My
Yeah.
wife shouldered that whole burden as I was whatever off at work. And so all I had to do was show up and be a good sport. And I did my very best in that world. But yeah, we took them to Disneyland. We stayed there for 2 or 3 nights and then did, you know, one day at one park and one day at the other park. And, you know, just like many other young, dumb people, we were like, hey, we'll be there when the gates open and we're going to do this thing, the whole park, and then come home, you know, at park time close. And the first day, we pretty much did that. We were there from open to close with our
Whew.
5 kids. So that's a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old. Let's see, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 0
Yeah.
years old.
Oh
And
man.
it
Woo.
it was hard, dude. It was really, really hard. And the hope was that they were all able to have a good time. And I knew, like, this trip was not for me. Like, I'm not here to have a good time. I was hoping to, like,
Yep.
watch them have a good time. And there were some good times, you know, to be had there. We had a couple of meals that were really delicious that we all enjoyed. But it was really, really hard. I mean, Disneyland, they have it figured out. They're dialed in of like how to drain your wallet as quickly as possible. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, at every corner, it's cotton candy machines and light up bubble machines,
Churros.
you know, none of which have a price tag under $30. So
Yeah.
every time you say yes, it's $30 to all of your kids who are like, I want that, or like, oh, that's cool, please let me have that. And so you say yes 3 times, and that's $100. that you just spent. And so
Yep.
it was difficult. I spent 2 days just like saying no as much as I possibly could, and trying to show them all that could be done without the extra dollars that were spent. But
Yeah.
it's funny because it was, I mean, straight up, honestly, it was one of the worst 2 or 3 days like that I've had, period, because of how difficult it was. But it's funny because going now, when I ask them about that trip, it was like easily top three experiences of their life. All of these
Yeah.
kids, which is funny because all I saw or remember is them like crying and whining. The line's too long. I want the bubble machine. All that type of stuff. But they look back at it like this big old magical experience, and so it's pretty amazing. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, that's no, I love that because specifically on that topic, right? And in general, in just almost daily life, right? To be a dad is to sacrifice, right? Um, and you went on the trip knowing it's going to drain your energy, drain your patience, drain your wallet, right? And we do things, it just brings up that idea of, at least in fatherhood and masculinity, right, is that we sacrifice so that our kids can have good memories, and so we do things not necessarily for ourselves but for others. And so I love that. I love that concept. And so yeah, I mean, what advice would you, I mean, kind of winding it down, I know we're coming up on time, but so yeah, having gone through that, I guess what advice would you have for someone that's going to take the kids to Disneyland or go on a vacation like camping with, what advice would you give them to kind of combat against what's going on there?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Um, my answer might be a little bit more difficult than what you're hoping for. This isn't
No, it's
a prep for a vacation advice here. There's two thoughts that come to mind. One of them is I guess it's more of a parenting strategy is what I would put to it. But
yeah,
one of the more difficult things, I think, as a dad or just as a parent, is allowing your children room to make mistakes and actually like experience discomfort. It's it, allowing them to actually like follow through with a bad decision is, I think, paramount. Like you should be doing that frequently. And I'm not obviously, I'm not talking about like let them bleed, but let them experience the discomfort. And so
yeah,
if they're fighting you on putting on their shoes to go outside when it's really really cold and there's snow on the ground, like I think you should let go of that argument early. Like
yeah,
let them go outside without shoes on. They're not going to die, but they are going to learn. and and
totally.
and, and then moving forward, you're not having that argument 100 times for the other 1,000 times you're gonna, it's gonna be snowy outside and your kids are gonna want to go out and play. Instead, they're gonna just remember, oh, that freaking hurt. So
Yeah, for sure.
they're gonna put on their own shoes without the argument. Um, and that can be applied to just anything. Like they need to know that the advice that you're giving them is because there's a reason behind it. And so make sure that, like, whatever, if you have little glass ornaments on your side table in your living room, the reason that your kids shouldn't play with those ornaments isn't because they're going to get in trouble if they do. Because guess what, as
Right.
soon as you leave the room, all of a sudden the danger is gone in their mind, right? It's like, oh, I can play with glass ornaments now because my dad's not here to see it. And so if he doesn't see it, then I don't get in trouble. Because they thought, and because you taught them that the reason they don't play with the glass ornaments is because they get in trouble. What the real reason is well, because you're 3 and you're gonna break them. And when you
Yep.
break them, there's glass, and that can be dangerous. And so if from the
Yep.
very beginning, if you can explain, hey, look, this thing's really fragile, just take the time. This thing's really fragile. If you play with it over the hardwood floor, over the tile, whatever, you might accidentally drop it and it would break, and the glass becomes really sharp and you could get cut. And I know people listening to me
Yep.
right now are like, dude, like I get it. But you gotta explain it like that to the kid. He's 3. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that if you drop glass, it breaks. And if it breaks, the glass is sharp. So you got to go through each one of those steps. Just take that time, that one time, and it's going to save you so much time in the future when you don't have to do that anymore because they actually have learned it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, your question was, hey, how do you prepare for this vacation? Dude, it's things like that from a parenting standpoint where my kids are quite developed. Like I know I'm talking about my own kids, but they're quite developed and they're quite mature. They play outside by themselves. I'm not there. I'm not watching them. And it's because I'm confident in how much they've learned. For me allowing them to experience the discomfort along the way.
Yeah.
And so they know, like, yeah, this thing's too high. I'm not going to jump off it, you know,
Yeah.
and things like that. And then one more piece of advice, and this is kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, is when you notice them doing something good, you gotta tell them. You gotta show how much
Yeah.
you appreciate that. You gotta vocalize it, whether it's that they cleaned their room or unloaded the dishwasher or shared a toy, or if they just were nice to somebody, or if they did something that you thought was cool or funny or artistic. Like, you go over, embrace them, tell them how proud of you that they are, and make sure they know how big of a deal that is that they chose to do something good. And again, that builds this, like, it's this second level of understanding where they will on their own do more of those things because you had vocalized the importance of it, how much you appreciate it. They love you just inherently. You love your parents from the day that you're born. It's not because they're like paying the utility bill. It's not a thought process that you have. You're just born with that. I
Sorry,
lost
Stevie.
it.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yep.
So anyways, vocalizing your appreciation and embracing it and being there, I think builds this additional level of desire on their part to continue to do good things.
For sure. For sure. Sorry about the video cutting. It looks like my camera got too hot, it says, so it's
No
gonna cool
problem.
off for a second. But that's great. Those are great pieces of advice, Stevie. So that first one, that's one of the hardest things to do as a parent, is letting them, fail within a safe space that they're not going to get too injured, or that's so that's great piece of advice, because that's one of the like most natural things to do, is want to have them avoid the discomfort, but that only sets them up for failure in the long run. So I love that. And giving praise is so huge. In fact, there's a really cool I follow a lot of Jordan Peterson stuff, and he talks about how giving an encouraging word can absolutely just change someone's life. Whether they're young, you're talking about just kids and setting them up for success, or just someone who's having a rough time, and giving an encouraging word is such a key thing for humans, and just our experience. But
Especially from people that you look up to and that want to be. I mean, as a dad, or a mom, you are your kid's world there in those beginning years. And so if you told them how amazing and wonderful and artistic and funny and whatever that they are, that they believe it 100%. and they're just elated.
Yep.
So how easy of a thing that you can do as a father, especially in these beginning years, to tell them how proud of them you are.
Yeah,
It's the world. It's the world to them, literally.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, they know no one else really. I mean, they have some friends, but I mean, yeah, for sure. Um, well, awesome, Stevie. This was I was going to take a second to have you brag about your kids, as you whether want to do it collectively. I mean, you already kind of said it, and I can vouch for that. They're very good kids. They, and they do play hard, which is cool. I love seeing Zach jumping around and doing all the crazy things that he does on a trampoline, kind of mimicking his dad, right? Doing backflips, front flips, all the other fun stuff he does.
Yeah, no,
Um,
they're good kids. I appreciate that, Clay. It's nice of you.
yeah, no, thanks for joining me, Stevie. I know we're up on time, but I'm excited. I'm glad we were able to sit and talk a little bit about your experience and getting it raw. And I very much appreciate your stories and your advice. And
Yeah,
I'm really glad we're able to.
thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
I
This
know
was
it's hard.
fun.
Please tell your wife thank you so much. I know it's hardest on her, and I'll I know it's interesting on Saturday mornings. I'm glad you spent some time some time with me. So and as always, kind of with our parting words, everybody live your legacy. And with that, tune in for next time. And Steve, we'll have to have you on again to talk about more specifically about dating and how important it is to date your wife.
I'd love to,
Because
Clay. That sounds awesome.
anyway, all right. Thanks, Stevie,
Thanks,
and
Clay.
thanks everybody. Tune in next time.
See ya.